Well, Miss Williams, thank you for joining us at the Difficult Student Podcast. Can you please introduce yourself?
Of course. Hi, my name is April Williams, and I am an administrator in Los Angeles. And I've been an administrator, I've been an educator. Coming upon 20 years now, I'm a few years shy of 20 years.
Perfect, perfect. Now we met each other at the same place at RFK Community of Schools. I
Mhm.
don't know, like 5 years ago or something, like 6 years ago. How
Yeah,
long ago was that? It was a while back.
it was a while back.
Six, seven
Yeah,
years ago, something like that.
yeah, because this is
Right.
our third year as administrators.
Mm-hmm.
And then we did about 2 to 3 years
Something like
out of the
3 years.
classroom.
Yeah,
So
something like
yeah,
that.
wow, it has been 6 or 7 years.
So, can you tell us a little bit about the your role? You were a college and career counselor at RFK.
I was actually, it was called a middle school college and career coach.
Mm,
And that title is a misnomer. It is, I was not a counselor, although I was seated in the offices with
yeah,
the counselors. That role was developed by our district to support the transition from middle school to high school, because that's when we tend to lose a lot of our students um, to, life and discipline issues and whatever else is going on that kind of veer them in the wrong direction. So it was really an intervention position. So
yeah.
my job was to really look at data and identify um, issues that we can catch early.
Mm-hmm.
So pretty much look at early risk assessments.
Yeah, so you I feel like you had a role where the kids appreciated your company, that like they liked you. My role wasn't that way. They didn't appreciate my company. Being the dean of students, right? That was my first out of the classroom role.
Yeah.
I feel like that was one of the hardest roles I've ever had because I went from being like a rock star teacher. Like when I was an elementary school teacher or middle school teacher, the kids loved me. Like they all loved me, Mr. Vergara, Mr. V. They all loved me. I was great. Then I went to RFK and I'm the dean, and they don't want to
Mm.
see me. They don't want to talk to me.
You were a very nice dean, I would
I,
say.
yeah, I would say so too. But
Yeah.
it didn't start off that way. It didn't
Hmm.
start off like kids like me. It
Correct.
did not start out. It took me about a good year and a half, maybe, for them to
Hmm.
actually appreciate me. Maybe just I don't know
Yeah.
if they really liked me, but they
Right.
appreciated me. I don't know. Put up with me. I don't know.
Right. I think the transition for me was difficult. The transition of coming to a new school where I didn't know any kids. I never worked with middle school before.
Yeah.
Although we were at a span school, we had, K through 12. We primarily were on the secondary side, so the 6 to 12. But my role was with middle school.
Yeah.
Um, so, yes, I would say that the students probably gravitated toward me a little more as far as that relationship building. Um, I feel like like the first 2 days, it was shell shocked. I was like,
Yeah.
these kids are not smiling at me. They don't know me. I feel ignored. I was really struggling a bit for those few days, but I found myself becoming a safe space
Yeah.
for those incoming sixth graders. So during, supervisions, during the different breaks, I find that I had a whole little crew around me that would hang with me, and then I noticed as they got comfortable and they found friends, they moved on. But I really appreciated that I was able to kind of be that safe space where kids didn't have to be alone. And, they still felt like they had a friendship. And there were kids around me who may not have known each other, but they began, making friends. So it's kind of like
Yeah.
they had a friend group, although it was like, the old woman there hanging out with them.
So how did you create that safe place? What did you do to create a safe place for them?
I think naturally my passion with young people is just understanding them.
Yeah.
They're people, they're humans. I don't feel like I need to dominate them. I don't feel like I need to be right all the time.
Yeah.
So I would assume that maybe it's my just humanness and my genuine care for them, maybe they can feel that
Yeah.
because I didn't do anything. Honestly, there was no
Yeah.
strategy to it.
Yeah, you're just being yourself, and by being
Yeah.
yourself, being your loving, caring self, they just
Hmm.
gravitated toward you just because you're who you were. You didn't have to be
Yeah.
anybody else.
Correct.
Yeah, you definitely. I feel like you definitely were yourself. You weren't trying to be like all the administrators there, the
Hmm.
teacher. You weren't trying to be anybody but yourself, and that paid off. I felt,
Yeah,
you know,
it did.
same with me. I was just trying to be myself.
Hmm.
Trying to be myself as a dean. I remember this was like the worst part. I remember my first day of work. Right,
Hmm.
I go inside the office. I'm talking to Mr. Ortiz, and he says, "Oh, okay, it's 7:50. Go outside and clear the yard, clear the courtyard right there." I'm like,
No
"What?"
instructions.
He's just like, "No, go out there and go ahead and do it." I'm like, "All right." So I go out there, and I'm like, "All right, guys, it's 7:55. Time to go to class." And everybody's looking at me like, "Who are you? Who
Right.
are you? What do you
No
Yeah, like
introduction.
nothing. All right, hey guys, I'm the new dean. Like go ahead, and nobody vouched for me. Like
R-
nobody came out and said, "Hey guys, this is the new dean." Like it was just me getting out there and saying, "Everybody go to class," and
And you
everybody
started
looked at me.
later. You didn't start on the first
I didn't
day.
start the
Am I?
first day. No, I didn't
Okay.
start the first day.
Wow.
Yeah, so I started. I'm gonna say I started maybe the beginning of October, maybe.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, the beginning of
Okay.
October I started.
Well, 2 months had passed.
2 months had passed, and so they were
Wow.
already used to something. Whatever
Yeah,
it was, they were used to that. And
correct.
so he just threw me out there and said, "Go ahead and get to work, get it." And they looked at me like I was crazy. Like, who are you? I remember going back to my office, already feeling defeated. It's just like, damn.
Wow.
I was like, man, I can't believe that nobody listened. I can't believe that it was a big shocker. It was a big shocker for me.
If it's sad to say, I think that's the trend a lot with everyone who works in education. I'm sure some teachers have been thrown in classrooms and felt that way.
Oh yeah,
Um, so wow. I mean, I think that's something we all can relate to, and it's
yeah.
something that we can empathize with in others now.
Yeah, and you know, um, when I look about, and I think we talked about this a little bit earlier, but with working with Mr. Ortiz, he was right across from me. Working with Mr. Ortiz as a assistant principal, I'm sorry, as a dean at that time. Some of the things that he did, right? Some of the things that he did, we kind of bumped each other's heads or whatever. We got in. Sometimes we got on each other's nerves, right?
Hmm.
But when I think about it, some of the things that he instilled into me, I use it now. I use it now.
Really?
Yeah, like he would always say, make sure you call the parents and call both parents. Call both
Oh,
parents. So if there was
okay.
an incident that happened, call both parents. Make sure that whoever the aggressor, you call their parent, and then whoever was a victim, you make sure you call them as well.
Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
didn't. I thought I was hearing you say call both parents at first
No,
because
no,
I'm
no, no,
like,
like
well, go for the
mom and
one
dad
kid because I
on
was
both
like, oh my
sides.
god, I'm thinking like social
No,
justice
no,
on
no.
so many people. Okay, I got
And
you.
you come as a teacher. Like when I was a classroom teacher, I prided myself on not having to even call parents because
Hmm.
my classroom management was so good that I
Yeah.
didn't even have to call any parents at all. So I
Hmm.
never really called parents. And then it was like I was calling parents every single day. And he was like, and call both parents. And oh my God, it was such a drag at first. But
Yeah.
I now as an administrator, I
Hmm.
do the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And
Right.
when I talk to other people, I'm like, hey, make sure you call both sides. Call
Right.
so that part, I appreciate that. And then logging in the information. So let's just say something happened. Make sure you go on our system and you
Hmm.
put it in. Hit the contact log, put it in, so that there's data supporting, that you did an intervention, that you did
Correct.
something about it. And I
Correct.
used to hate that. I was like, oh my God, we have to do this.
Right.
But
It's so many steps to that.
yeah, oh man. But it saved me so many times as a dean, and it saves
Yeah.
me now as an administrator.
Specifically as an administrator because it's a totally different avenue, is a lot of compliance. And I find myself, I have to get used to that a lot. Sometimes you think something may not be a big deal, but if that child go home and call and tell their parent, the scenario, their interpretation may sound very different than yours or what happened. So it is important to get in front of that. So yeah, that was a good lesson you learned. I don't think I learned that until I became an administrator,
Yeah, yeah,
'cause like,
yep,
oh, okay, that's no big deal. A girl and a boy was in the bathroom together. Okay, well, we caught them,
yeah. We stopped it or whatever. Yeah,
But you learn the hard way,
yeah,
parent. I mean, I guess as parents, would you want to know? And I would. So
yeah.
for sure.
So and then we had Dr. Smith, right? He was such a he was such a professional in my mind.
Y-
In
Yes.
my mind, he was such a professional. Like he was always suited up. He always wore his suit, his tie. He was always calm and cool and
Hmm.
under it seemed like he was always under control, like he always had things under control. And when
Correct.
you're around the guy, you just felt like, okay, things are gonna be taken care of. Like it's gonna be all right. He brought that
Correct.
presence, right? And so I learned that from him going into this administration job
Mhm.
is I need to bring a presence. There's something about
Yes.
me. I have to bring a presence, some sort of peace, and I can't
Hmm.
get frazzled and I can't get worried. I just got to bring this presence. And
Hmm.
Dr. Smith, I learned that from Dr. Smith. I felt.
Yeah, I think just like you say that you learned, just the calling and the documentation from Ortiz, and that was a big kind of pivot for you in your career as you move to the next level. I think that professionalism for me, that I learned from Dr. Smith, that was like that pivotal area. But of course, I'm still going to learn the hard way. And it's taken me a few years to realize that, no more imposter syndrome. You're here, you have this position, you're supposed to be here,
Yeah.
and you can still be pleasant because Dr. Smith was always pleasant. He was
Yeah, he
always
was.
cordial, he was always, very inviting. However, there was that level of professionalism that you really couldn't penetrate.
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of years. I think this year I have it on lock. It's like, yeah, we're going to kind of keep it definitely at that
Professional.
surface level and keep it professional because when they say, there's sometimes a disconnect and a line between both sides, which makes me so sad.
Yeah.
But there is. I mean, are we, I don't know. Maybe with our position, we're just held to a different standard and we can't slip like maybe we could have before we became administrators.
Yeah. Can you talk about that line? So being an assistant principal, right? You come from working at RFK, and
Hmm.
maybe you were friendly with the teachers, maybe you were, I don't know, maybe you had different relationships with people on
Hmm.
campus, and then you go to this new
Hmm.
school and you might feel like, okay, I could probably still kind of have those kind of relationships, but then you learn real quick, probably not.
Correct.
Probably not.
You realize people, honey, they will call, they
Yeah,
will call whoever it is they call on you really quickly. What's interesting? I think that our district do a great job at requiring us to be out of classroom staff before entering into
yeah,
administration.
that's
It
right.
that really gives us a cushion and an opportunity to learn what to expect. Because I remember feeling like I was being treated like an administrator at when we were at RFK. I
Yes, yes.
remember, going into an English meeting because that was my area, and like everybody getting cold and everybody sitting up and they're like stopping their conversations. I'm like, hey, I'm one of you.
Yeah,
I'm still a teacher,
yeah,
So I remember feeling that there. So I think that helped
yeah,
me transition. I'm such of a friendly person and I love people so much. I still have to learn the hard way.
yeah,
I think that as an administrator, personally, I don't really believe in hierarchies, right? I don't have a power problem. I'm more
yeah,
of a like power with leader as opposed of being a power over leader.
yeah,
And I will get down and roll my sleeves up and work right next to you.
yeah,
However, I have found that sometimes people don't respect that. Like they don't respect the leader that wants to stand with them. Sometimes I feel like people respect the ones that kind of towering over them a bit. And that's
Yeah.
not my personality, and I'm not going to become something that I'm not. However, um, I think sometimes people like respect the dictatorship more. And
Yeah.
it's sad. I had a situation one summer I was working. I was, working between being a summer school principal and, when I wasn't on that, I was sharing it with someone. I was still there taking care of some other stuff, helping with professional development and things like that. So I remember, after, I was helping, but now, we're B bases. So we start back work
Yeah.
before. So
Hmm.
now I'm back at work. Like I don't necessarily have time to help as much or do these things. And I remember someone kind of, when it was time for the PD, it was like, okay, well, what are you guys doing or whatever, just checking in. It was like, oh, that's your role. And we're not doing, and I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I need to reiterate, so I found that's like my most difficulty in this role and figuring out how to kind of navigate or straddle that fence of
Yeah.
just, you know, I'm helpful. I want, stakeholder input and feedback, but still um, knowing that I am in a supervisory role.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if that's something I'll ever get used to or if it's something that I'm going to have to just continuously remind myself of.
Yeah, that's a tricky line to balance on right now. Like
Yeah.
right now, it's funny because my school is tiny. Like you're probably at a larger school. My school is
Hmm.
tiny. It's just basically me and the principal are the out of the classroom consistent people.
Oh,
So it's just me and the
wow.
principal.
No
That's it.
coordinators,
No coordinator. We have a psychologist, but she comes maybe like twice a week or something like that.
no
We
instructional
No
coaches.
instructional coaches, no nothing. It's really just me
Wow.
and her running the school,
Oh,
right?
wow.
And so last year we had a coordinator, she retired, so this year it's just
Hmm.
me and her.
Hmm.
And it's it's different, because it's such an intimate school. You know everybody. We have a small amount of teachers, just me and
Hmm.
you know everybody. It's
Yeah.
not like when we were at RFK, it was a huge school. You could kind of separate, like
Yeah.
here are the out of the classroom people and here are the teachers, and you could kind of
Hmm.
separate, and there's like a line.
Right. Because there was a separation there,
Yeah,
if I recall.
there's it's like it's a blurry line at my school because
Right.
it's just me and her, right? It's just me and her,
Wow.
and we do pretty much it all. And so I'm with you on that, where I'm not I like to roll up my sleeves and help everybody out. I'll
Hmm.
do whatever I need to do to make this school run. I'll
Yes.
fill any job
Hmm.
that I need to fill so that this school runs smoothly.
Correct.
Yeah, and I'm not a dictator. I don't want to dictate
Right.
and tell people what to do. I will if I have to,
Do you
but
find that people need that sometimes?
some people need that sometimes. Some people need that sometimes. Not everybody.
Well,
Most people, just like in the classroom, right?
right.
Most kids will just listen. The majority of kids, if you have good classroom structure, if you have good procedures, most kids will just listen. And you got like a handful. You got like maybe a few. A few, they're like, even though you have great procedures, I'm still not gonna listen. I'm still not
Right.
gonna listen. So
Correct.
I think that some people need that. Some
Yeah.
people need that. Not
Hmm.
everybody.
Right. Do you have a lot of veteran teachers? Like how many teachers do you have at your
Yeah, so we
school?
have everybody's veteran.
Okay.
Everybody's a veteran teacher. I think everybody's a veteran teacher, or everybody is we have older staff. We have older
Okay.
staff. So I'm gonna say that I'm the youngest person. Like yeah. So I'm 46 and I'm the youngest staff member.
Wow.
Yeah,
That's
staff member.
amazing.
Right? So we got just a more veteran crowd at my school. Um,
Okay. Well,
so
that's a challenge within itself.
that's right. That's right. I feel like a mix would be the best. You
Hmm.
got young, you got mid.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it is. I mean, it is what it is.
because that supervising instruction part is big, and you get a lot of that with supporting new teachers.
Yeah.
My school, I'm at another span school, so I'm
Hmm.
K-12 again. We have a AP that's over our elementary, so I don't have to really work with the elementary unless I'm pitching in and helping,
Yeah.
covering or whatever. But we have some teachers that's been there like 25, 30
Yeah.
years, which I find amazing.
Yeah.
And then we have, it's like half and half. And then we'll
Okay.
have half like brand new teachers. And, it's interesting with the brand new teachers, particularly, I think, coming back from COVID, and then being a part of this teacher shortage.
Yeah.
A lot of teachers are just kind of placed in the classroom a lot the way you were placed, your
As the
first day
dean.
being a dean.
That's right.
And, it's it's challenging.
It's very challenging. How do you, it being so challenging, right? How do you support your teachers? How do you support your teachers when it comes to students with difficult behavior?
Hmm.
How do you support them?
Well, fortunately, um, I'm not in a role where I have to deal with a lot of, well, no, that's not completely the truth. Um, we have a program in my school called BSAP, which is the Black Student Achievement Program.
Okay.
So, although we're not a discipline program, sometimes kids that fit within that demographic by default comes to me and my team. So, we take the restorative approach. I have a restorative justice teacher on my staff. I have a PSW on my staff.
Okay.
I have a school climate advocate on my staff, as well as I have a parent rep. He just started. We didn't have it before, but we have a parent rep and we have an academic counselor. So we really take a wraparound approach. We even have a group chat to where if something happened, we put in the group chat,
That's good.
whether it's, my RJ teacher, can you go check in here, right now? Or can you make sure you follow up with the student? Can you make sure you support this teacher with some restorative practices? Um, but our approach is really restorative, and that doesn't always align with just the discipline approach in general. So we kind of find ourselves at odds sometimes with the discipline, because we also have a dean at our school and we also have
Okay.
an assistant principal that's over discipline.
Oh wow.
So it's a challenge because I personally am a sucker for kids. I knew I could never be a police officer. I can't be in that role because I forgive everyone. And I
Yeah.
believe that everyone can do better and be better. And oh my goodness, right?
Yeah.
That bites me sometimes too.
Yeah.
However, I'd rather keep that outlook because the majority of people will do better, right? They
Yes.
will make a change and they did make a mistake. It's only a small percentage of people who, may come back and, rob you again.
Yeah.
But so my approach is I listen is I don't want to say it's anti-teacher, it's not, but I listen to the kid because I see sometimes how teachers talk to kids and how they approach kids and how they trigger kids. And I don't think that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of these strategies that we provide, a lot of these strategies that we train on are really good strategies if people will use them.
Yeah.
We think about some of our tier one interventions, which means, just our whole school, good teaching, good classroom management, good procedures. I think if those things were in place, maybe 95, I'll say 90%
90
of issues probably wouldn't be there,
wouldn't be an issue.
wouldn't be an issue. So, you know, I think we just have to probably do better at training on those a little more. I think just like When teachers come in, it's recommended that they spend maybe the first few weeks practicing procedures, teaching kids explicitly how to behave in the class, whether it's lining up to come in, being prepared, having their warm up while they do their paperwork and attendance and things like that. I think that just like we coach teachers to do that, we probably should be also supporting teachers in that way those first few weeks,
Yeah.
and just being present. It's a gift and a curse because it's like I want to spend more time in classes. I absolutely do, but you're pulled away so much is it's difficult. So it's just really finding that happy medium. But I also want to build capacity, right? I don't want to always go to a classroom and handle your discipline problem for you, because you'll never build a rapport with your student. You
Yeah.
know, sometimes the best relationships may have some ups and downs, but you guys will go through that and build something strong that will last. Like our kids remember us forever. Like I don't remember one administrator that I've been to school with since kindergarten.
Oh, you're right. You're
I,
right.
I don't know
I
one
don't remember.
administrator,
Yeah.
but I know my teachers.
Yes.
And I think that I try to share those kinds of wisdoms. Um, but yeah, when it comes to discipline, I have to be careful because kids like coming to my office and they like hanging out with me. And Miss Williams, can I come to your office during, can they send me out to your office? And it's like,
Yeah.
absolutely not, because I need you to
Yeah.
achieve. But, I redirect in a way that reminds them of who they are, right?
Yeah.
Scholars do this. And, you know, being in class means this. Like, this is where you learn, right? So I try to remind, but remind in a way that's practical for them.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a. It's funny you say you're a sucker. I have this thing, right? Like I be, and it's biblical, right? So like, be as wise as a serpent, but as gentle as a dove, right? That's
Mm,
my approach.
I love
I'm
that.
as gentle as a dove for the majority of the time, like 90% of the time. I'm just if you've seen any of my videos, I'm pretty gentle with the students or whatever. Some of the
Mm-hmm.
videos I posted, I'm pretty gentle, but when I feel like somebody's trying to game me, right? When I feel like, hey, my senses go off and I'm like, oh, wait a minute, something's not right here.
Right.
That's when I'm like, okay, that's why I become wise. I'm like, nope, no, no, I sense it, no. And I use a whole different approach, It's more of like, okay, let's play chess. We're playing chess
Mm-hmm.
now. We're playing a game and we're gonna play this game, and you're gonna do this, and I'm gonna do that, and then we're just gonna keep playing until I win. We're gonna keep playing until I
I
win.
love that.
Yeah, but for 90% of everybody else, I'm gentle. Good morning, how are you? When I handle problems, when I feel like it was like an accident, when they really didn't mean it, and I could tell, I'm like, okay,
Mm-hmm.
let's handle it out. But when I feel like it was purposeful, like, you did that. You were being mean. You were trying to hurt
Mm-hmm.
somebody's feelings. You were
Right.
trying to harm somebody on purpose. That's not
Mm-hmm.
okay. So
Right.
I'm going to use a different approach with you, because being gentle as a dove, you're like a wolf, and you're gonna tear me up. You're just gonna tear me up, and I can't be that. I can't get torn up
Right.
by you. So that's the approach that I use. Is yeah, I'm gentle. I'm gentle with the majority of the time,
I
but
love that. I'm gonna have to write that scripture down because
yeah,
I
I'm gonna
am
be wise
gentle
as a
and
serpent.
that wise as a serpent. Yes. I find even when kids are being mean, I stand at the door and I welcome kids in and I dismiss them at the end of the day. And I'm always, hi, how are you? Hi, have a good
Yeah.
day. And, especially the kids that looks like they need it, right?
Yes. Yes.
I go out of my way to just say, hey, can't wait. I'll see you tomorrow, because you just don't know. Maybe it's that little word that makes them realize that they should have a tomorrow.
Yes.
And that's very important to me. But when I'm out there and there's kids who will walk straight by me, and but I learned, I don't take it personal.
Yeah.
I don't. And I tend to, I have sixth graders who are so full of drama, honey. I tell you, the Real Housewives have nothing on
Uh,
these
they
kids.
got to start a show. They got
They
to
got,
start a
well,
show.
listen, I am so jealous of the people who started the show. What is that? I never really watched it, but there's a TV show centered around a classroom that's pretty popular.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um, I
I
can't
think
think of the
I
name
think
of
of, I
it.
can't think. It's the name of the school. I can't think of it either, but it's
Yeah,
pretty good.
yeah. But I tell you, I'm like, you better have been a educator. Like, you should not have made this show if you're not an educator, because
Yeah,
we deserve to make that show
yeah, yeah,
as being educators. But I try to, it's a little different, but it's the same. I try to teach my students how to fish as opposed to giving them that fish,
yeah,
because they're not going to always have Miss Williams around to look at them in the most positive light, or to be understanding to them, or be patient to them. So I try to, provide as many tidbits as I can. Like, as I'm helping to work through an issue, I try to, like, embed those life lessons. And we still read and we learn every day, and these are the things that we learn and help our own selves navigate our lives. Like, we can help our students navigate their lives in that way. So I
yeah,
share, like, with the little girls, and she looked at me and she was talking about me. And it's like, first, let's not take it personal. Maybe, I mean, your outfit is cute today.
yeah,
How do you know she's not admiring your
yeah,
outfit?
yeah,
You know what I mean? How do you know that she said that? Did you hear it, or did someone tell you? Like, just really teaching them to kind of be mindful and not be so quick to react, or just even listen to the things that other people say.
yeah,
So I think that's my biggest approach to discipline. Now, if I was ever, you know, over disciplined, it would probably be a problem, because I know you have to have that toughness and that wiseness all the time. I don't know if that's my strength. I'm gonna be honest.
yeah,
I don't think that's my strength. I think my strength is definitely the social emotional learning, and the patience, and the listening, and throwing everything out the window because you're here and I need to be present for you.
yeah,
And as you know, I'll never get anything done if I was, that was my my full
yeah,
time role. So I think, like you say, God, I know God has no place in education, but I think He has always put me where I'm supposed to be, because I've been able to nurture and build relationships.
yeah,
Even when I was a classroom teacher, I taught at a school for pregnant girls. So we had a very small specialized population, and I was able to really cultivate those relationships and kind of dive deeper into the curriculum, into my my guidance as a classroom teacher for that demographic was, how can I make this practical, right? How can I take these standards and look at the skills that they need to learn? How can I teach it in a way that they can walk out of my classroom today and use it?
yeah.
And I tend to kind of still have that method, just even, in my everyday interaction
So how do you build those relationships? Right? Because there's some teachers, some educators that don't know how to build those relationships
with students.
with students, right?
Okay.
And so, a lot of the posts that I post on social media are strategies on how to build
Hmm.
relationships with students. But like for the teachers that don't know how to do that, right? What kind of tips would you give them? How do you build relationships with students?
I'm going to tell you honestly, Mr. Vergara, is natural.
Natural.
It really is.
It's a
I
God
mean,
given gift.
it is.
Yeah.
I have a degree in journalism. I love people. I
Yeah.
love stories. I love talking, right?
Yeah.
I love being social.
Yeah.
So it's very natural for me. I think being an educator is the best job in the world because it keeps us young, you know? Even back in my going out days, right? Like, what's the new dance? Because I'm going out.
You
Show me
know,
the
you're
new
right.
dance, you
You're
know?
right.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you'll be amazed how much you bond over kids with fashion, right? And I
Yeah.
think that's my excuse for spending so much money, in them stores.
Hey.
Because I think it's important for kids, especially kids of color, to see that you can be successful, you
Yeah.
can be fly, like you can be educated and still be able to afford the things you want. I talk about investing with my kids because I have kids. It's like, so I'm gonna join the cartel, or I'm gonna do this and I'm gonna do that. I don't want to go to college, right? And I don't
Yeah.
just like jump down their throats. I feel like,
No.
okay, well, tell me why. And this is, we talk about it. I listen because I am genuinely interested,
Yeah.
right? I just love people. And I I wanted to go into journalism because I'm fascinated with looking at life through the lens of another person.
Yeah.
I was an English teacher, so I taught To Kill a Mockingbird a lot, and I love that book. And there is a activity that I would do, and it's called putting yourself in someone else's shoes. Like you could literally, a good thing to do with that assignment is to literally bring in different types of shoes, right? So, putting yourself in someone else's shoes. And I just realized, I think as a young person, like you and I can be looking at the same exact thing, but we're going to see different things. And I just think
Right.
I've always been fascinated with that.
Yeah.
Um, I think another thing is I was one of these students, right? I'm from the same community that I teach in.
That's right.
I'm in the same margins that they're in.
Yep.
I understand when I say being practical. When I was a young person, I barely got out of high school. And
Hmm.
not because I wasn't smart and not because I didn't apply myself, but it was because I had real adult problems at home. I had to work, I had to pay bills, I have to look after my parents. So I remember having a chip on my shoulder in high school and thinking, guys don't understand my life. Like you can't tell me anything.
Yeah.
You're not dealing with what I'm dealing with. Like I had an attitude about it, right?
Yeah.
So I understand, like, I can't think about 5 years from now. College, I have to eat today. Like, I have
Yeah.
to, my mom is having a nervous breakdown at home. And
Yeah.
that's why I couldn't come to school for the last week because we couldn't leave her by herself. Or
Yeah.
I have to get home because my sister, took off work and she has to go. And, I had
Yeah.
real issues. So when I look at these kids, like I know. And my first job, my first teaching job was in Watts at Locke High School.
Lock
My
High School.
mom graduated from Locke High School, so Locke was this place of pride. And like I said, I'm from the inner city. I was from the same socio-economic circumstances that our students are from. And I remember I was like, this is my tribe. And I went there and I had a culture shock. Like, man, there's people poorer than me. Like you realize like there's levels to this, right?
Yeah.
And then I think a harsh reality was that students now are looking at you the way you looked at others, like you look rich, Miss Williams. I'm not. We know
Yeah.
as educators we're not, but in
Mhm.
their eyes, right?
Yeah.
So they can't imagine that I can even relate to some of the issues that they're having. And
Yeah.
I'm really open. Like, I don't mind telling my business. I mean, I'm appropriate, of course, but I don't mind telling my story. And I don't
Yeah.
mind making those connections and letting kids know, like, I actually went back to college in my 30s. So I lived even as an adult with children, like pre college. And
Yeah.
I saw the stark contrast literally from graduating from college it's like BC, before Christ and after Christ, like before graduation, before graduating from college and after.
Yeah.
And I know there's a big debate these days on do we need college and, things like that. And, I agree, these days you don't necessarily need to go to college to make a certain amount of money or whatever. But I think for kids in our community who don't really have access any other way, I still think college is the way to go because that's how they get exposed to people outside their neighborhoods, people outside their
Right.
families. This is when they go and they see that, there's more out there. They meet
Right.
different people and they're just enlightened in a different way that they just cannot be within their family, within their community. Sometimes we
Yeah.
have to break out, and that's the easiest and kind of most economic way. And most of our students are in a socioeconomic range to where college will most likely be free anyway.
Yeah. Yeah. So, you had a lot of good points. You mentioned this though. You said something like, uh, s- going to college help them see other people, other things, right? I think it helps you dream, right? It helps you dream, helps you see
Yes.
other things, right? And
Hmm.
so, I always talk about this. Yes, my parents, I love my parents, but they're my parents, right? So you don't really like what they say. You're like, it's my mom, it's my dad, right? But I had a neighbor who was a travel agent. His name was Russell. He was a travel agent, and he would go all across the world and then come back and show me pictures. And I was like,
Mm.
wait a minute, this guy lives in the same apartment as me, and he's going all over the world, and he's seeing all, he's showing me he's in the Amazon jungle, and he's over here in Paris, and
Wow.
he's doing all these crazy things. I'm like, damn, it's possible to leave this place. And then I'd
Mm.
go like at the park. There's this park director. His name was Santi, and I was like, man, being a park director is awesome. You could be a park director. You could be here. You could help the kids with sports.
Right.
You run a whole program here. You
Hmm.
have influence on families. This is a great job. I
Hmm.
love this. And then there was a youth pastor. Her name was Jackie. She made religion like fun. Like, wait, this
Mm.
could be fun. Like going to youth group could be fun. What? This is so different. So all these people, like, there's these individuals who I feel like if I wouldn't have met them, they opened my eyes, right? And I
Mm.
feel like we have to do that with our kids, right?
We
We
have
have to do with the
to.
kids that we work with. Let's open their eyes.
Mhm.
There's other things besides the small community that you're working in. You have to open up and see those things. So um yeah, that's a good point that you made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. um so y- like student apathy, right? Student apathy, is that a big thing at your school? Students just deciding, what, I don't want to do the work. I'm just done, because I've interviewed a lot of different people so far, and they're talking about it's a big thing.
It is. I think we're in a very peculiar part of like life or society
Yeah.
right now. Before the education conversation was, without an education, you can't do these things. That's actually not the case anymore.
Yeah.
Like, I think we have to acknowledge that society as we know it is shifting. And we can't run from that. And we have to figure out how to navigate it because we're asking students to do things and be somewhere that probably really isn't serving from their point of view, like
Yeah.
serving their interests or what it is that they even want to
That's
do.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that we're kind of ignoring it and we're expecting kids to, like, they have more access, they have more information. So we can't just expect students to just listen to what we say and have this blanket of respect and not have an opinion and just listen to what you say as gospel, right?
Yeah, because they can
When
fact check you real quick. Bring out that phone. Check. Let
correct,
me check
right?
that.
Correct. And
Yeah.
some of us don't really necessarily have our things together, rolling in work and, you know, doing Lord knows what the night before. And Kids see a lot. You always heard that even with parents, but I think is an age old truth. Like kids, what they say, little faces have big ears and big eyes. Like they observe, they're smart,
Yeah.
they're critical thinkers. Even if they're not learning how to be critical thinkers in the classroom, they're learning how to be critical thinkers from the YouTubes, the TikToks, the Instagrams, right? The
Yeah.
music, the conversations, the TV shows. So I think that we have to start shifting our approach. You know, Even in instruction,
Yeah.
right? How are we changing the curriculum? How are we making it engaging? How are we making it exciting for the students and something that they want to come in and do?
Yeah.
Are we telling them anything that they don't know already?
Yeah.
I have this one teacher. She's young. She's in her 20s, and she just does such fantastic things. And she's so, when you say culturally relevant, I think for so many years we look at that as like racial or ethnicity based, but it's actually to me like age based and just generation based. Because for her, when I say she's so culturally relevant, it's because like she'll do, maybe say a Venn diagram or a comparison, but between maybe like a TikTok and this and
Yeah.
things that the kids are really familiar with and excited about. And when I go in her class and I observe instruction, the kids are happy to present. They're having leadership, and I think we have to give students more credit. Um, and I think some teachers don't realize that, you know.
Yeah, I mean, social media is huge, right? Social media is huge right now.
Mhm.
Me being, I'm on social media, you're on social media, right?
Mhm.
Um, and your impact, right? Your impact goes deep now, right? So like
Mhm.
the videos that this video or like any video I make, whatever, it hits a lot of different people. People see that, right? Your
Correct.
stretch is, it's a lot more, longer than it used to be.
Mhm.
Um, and so social media, let's bring up social media. You're on your own social media journey right now,
I
right?
am.
You're on your own
Mhm.
social media journey. You're starting off, you said you're serious now, right? Now is the
I'm
time that you're
serious
serious now.
now. I
2024, you're serious.
2024, we doing it.
What's going on with your social media?
So, I I think about, honestly, about 6 months ago, I was just like, Lord, there has to be more out of life. I was kind of
Yeah.
having one of those meltdowns. Like, come on.
Yeah.
Like, I love my job. I love my students. Sometimes I'm like, I love my job. Like, that's not the issue. What's happening? Like, why am I not fulfilled?
Fulfilled.
I realized that, I don't think I need to be anywhere 12 hours a day. And I think after COVID, we had a taste of some balance,
That's right.
right? And it's hard to undo that.
It's very hard.
And,
Yeah.
honestly, and I learned this when we were at
RFK.
RFK, I realized that, even in my advocacy for kids, my own financial situation stunts that a little bit. I don't know if you remember, we had a kid. He transferred in, I think, from LA High. He was an opportunity transfer, and he was
Uh-huh.
just a fish out of water.
Uh-huh.
Um, and, I think maybe his second year, I think he probably came second semester. So the next year, I don't know. I just saw him, was like, hey, what's up? Who are you? You
Yeah.
know what I mean? I always see you kind of somewhere in the corner and by yourself. Like, what's up? And, we kind of got to know each other. And even though he was high school and I was, my caseload was
Middle
middle
school.
school, I became support for him. And I became that, we always ask students, who do you feel safe with on campus? Who do you feel safe going to? And I think I became that for this kid.
Yeah.
And, there were some things that would upset me about the way he was dealt with, right? And sometimes you just want to go ham in your advocacy. But I had to remember, like, ooh, I got mortgage, I got my own kids. I got
Right.
kid. I'm a ride for this kid, but I can't be losing my job now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that always stuck with me, man. I was like, man, if I can come to work and like without a financial worry and a cushion, and if this job, not that it's about our paycheck, but anybody go to work because we need an income, right? But maybe if I had more abundance, or more
Mm-hmm.
revenue sources, and I wasn't so dependent on this one check,
That's
then I
right.
could really do some good work
Yeah.
around these kids, right?
Yeah.
So, with that being said, I want to create just a little more financial freedom for myself. I
Yeah.
want to really tap into some passive income. I really want to hopefully show others how to tap into some passive income, because even within our industry, we're not necessarily the most well paid. Especially us living in Los Angeles, there's a lot of people in our industry who, it's like we're on the poverty level simply because we live in Los Angeles and we're priced out of everything.
That's right.
And I'm sure, with our teachers, that has a lot to do with their stress, which shows in how they deal with their students. And we can't ignore that. Like, life is real.
Yeah.
So I think, particularly as educators, we have so much untapped knowledge that goes beyond our job or our classroom. So I'm fascinated in looking into ways that we can kind of tap into that to build a little more financial freedom, so that we
Yeah.
can show up in those spaces a little more whole, if that makes sense.
It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
That's kind of what happened to me. It was COVID, right? It was COVID
Hmm.
happened. I'm a dean during COVID, which is the weirdest thing, right? Because
Yeah.
you're how am I supposed to do any discipline over Zoom?
I
What am I supposed to
remember
do?
that. Same,
What am I
same.
supposed to do?
That's
Like they would
probably why we liked it so much, because, hey, we weren't in the classroom teachers. We just pop in and out and,
yeah,
build some relationships. And
right. Like
yeah,
I would during COVID, I'd make little videos. I know I made these discipline videos. I'd show them. They'd ask me to pop into a Zoom because somebody had an inappropriate picture. Then I have to message them, be like, "Hey, can you take that picture off?" Like just silly things. Um, but I had this freedom, right, where like I come in and then I'm like, okay, what do I do? I'm not a classroom teacher, so I'm gonna
right,
just chill out, read a book, walk my dog.
right,
If I
right,
get a text message, I'm back on Zoom again, right? But
right.
I didn't have no real responsibility for like almost a year, and then
Same.
I was like, man, this is wonderful. This is wonderful, and that's where I started seeing like social media, TikTok, YouTube. I looked into like how much money these people make, like how much money does this person make, and then I was like, you know what? And I've always had this passion. I've
Hmm.
always tried to make some sort of content around building positive relationship with students with difficult
Yeah.
behavior. I've always had that
You've
passion for
always,
years,
yeah,
like
yeah,
years. Um, but then, I'm seeing TikTok and people are dancing, but then I see some educational videos and I'm like, wait a minute, I could do this. This is my platform right here.
right,
TikTok is my platform because I can make these videos, no sweat, no problem. Um, and I started just making videos, and it
right,
was because of COVID. It's because I had this free time, right? And I started making these little things. I probably studied TikTok for almost a year, just like
wow,
okay, let's take a look. Okay, that's a hook. Okay, this is a good title. Oh, that look at it, and I just kept on like learning. I just kept on learning,
yeah,
and last year around this time is when I was serious. I was like, all right, let's get serious about this. And now this is my second year in social media, and here I am with the podcast, right?
yeah.
I'm on all these other social media platforms, and I'm like, you know what? I enjoy this. I enjoy this. You know,
Well,
I could.
I hope I can have that same story a year from now, and I wish you would have told me a year ago. No, you know, you've always been a hustler. I always respected that about you. You know, whether when you were, you know, I think because of you, I bought the Cricut and the
Yeah,
presses, and I remember you had some stuff on Teacher Pay Teachers.
yeah,
I think, you know, sometimes I feel like I'm slow. Like I say, 6 months ago, I think I was like, wait a minute, people are not just on social media for fun. Like, people are doing now. It's not like, hi, will you buy this from me? You know, it's not that. It's you know, it's just very subtle. I think the first thing I thought about was like the affiliate marketing. And
yeah,
I think I was turned off because I was like, what is that? It sounds so like MLM and all this stuff, you know, all these get rich quick. And I was just like, you know, I just ignored that. But when I really sat, like a light bulb literally just came on.
yeah,
And I was like, oh, because I remember Dr. Smith one day was like, man, you're nice. Your skin is nice. What do you use? And I literally went on Amazon, found the links to everything that I use and sent it to him.
yeah,
Right? That's what affiliate marketing is.
yeah,
The other day, like last weekend, somebody was like, what do you use on your hair? Like, how do you keep it looking so wet? Right.
yeah,
And now at this point, I have a link. So I was like,
yeah,
girl, let me give it to you, you know. But I had to unlearn because I think in our community, you know, we have so much caution around people coming talking about money. Like, oh, you're trying to take advantage of me. And what are they talking about? Like, we're not taught that wealth belongs to us as well. Like,
yeah.
we're taught to look at wealth as a negative thing.
Yeah.
And you
It's
know,
evil.
it's evil. And when
It's
you think
evil.
about it in a practical way, it's like, of course, I know wealth isn't, you know, evil. But when you really think about like those deep down, um, just inherent beliefs, you know, we are taught that it's wrong. And, you know, we feel bad for wanting to get some wealth. And I
Yeah.
think, like I said, 6 months ago, a light bulb just turned on. And it's like, you know, these are the things you're passionate about. Why do you feel bad? Like, I have to constantly like battle myself
Yeah.
around it. But I think, you know, I think I have a couple of, you know,
The revenue streams or something.
well, no, not yet.
Yeah.
That's the goal. But I have a few social media platforms that actually one was really doing well. Like you said, when we were over the break, I was able to do a lot of engagement. I used to call it Fireside Friday. Now this was around just kind of esoteric wellness and, you know, like goddessy type topics.
Yeah.
And that's a passion of mine as well. And I was just, you know, I didn't wasn't thinking about monetizing, didn't know what that meant, but I would had a lot of engagement because I would have these fireside Fridays. So every Friday I would log on and I would share about different things. And I really saw like, man, people are coming back like week after week and people are making connections from something I told them, you know, maybe a couple of weeks ago and now, and wow, I see that this is really a thing. And
Yeah.
I didn't have a podcast, but my Instagram live was kind of like the podcast, I
Yeah.
guess, you know, Friday evenings. And then I would just get on at like 11 o'clock. And, you know, the first time I was like, no one's here. And I just like closed it. But after that, I was like, it's okay. And I would just talk, even when there was no one there. You know, you
Yeah.
can repost it and I will repost it to YouTube. And I had some guests on and we would talk about things. And I really, really liked it. And, you know, that's something I'm hoping to revamp. But what I'm focusing on is really just the content creation because I've really started making the connection um, with how just elements of education, like strategies that we use in public education, really is helpful for people who's creating content on, you know, on YouTube. I
I've
mean,
seen that.
on social
Yeah,
media.
I've seen your posts.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah.
like, and that's kind of been my sweet spot. That's been the most effortless, the most. I haven't had to do a lot of prep because I know it. I do it every day. And I think that that's where I'm headed in this social
Good.
media space.
That's good.
Yeah.
For me, the way I look at it is I have value.
Hmm.
I provide value, right?
Yes.
I provide some value, and if you like it, consume it, right? If you like
Hmm.
it, great. Stay here, consume it, watch the videos, watch the podcast. There's
Hmm.
value here. And that's what I provide that, right? Right
Yeah.
now I don't sell anything right now. I'm not doing any of
Hmm.
that stuff. I'm just providing value. Um,
Correct.
and I think that if I sell something, it's the same idea. This right
For
here,
sure.
this is valuable. What
Hmm.
I'm telling you right here on how to build relationship with students with difficult behavior, if I could create a course or something like that, it's going to be a valuable course, right? And whatever money
Absolutely.
that I ask for it, right? I'm not trying to rip anybody off. It's like it's an even exchange. That's why I
Correct.
see it. Like here's value. This money right here is equal to the value that I'm giving you right here.
Correct.
It's probably I probably will give you more value than what I'm going to ask you for anyway. So
Absolutely.
um, and that's what in my mind helps me is like
For
it's
sure.
I'm just giving value. I'm
Right.
not trying to rip anybody off, and
You
that's what's
know,
helped me out.
and I think that mindset like is a result of where we come from,
Yeah,
right? Because if you look at like why do you even have to justify that, right? And I think it was difficult for me because, all of my platforms, there's people I know in my kind of inner circle. And I like this page, I'm like, I'm starting this page. No one I know because I feel like I may know a couple of hundred people, but this world have a billion people in it, right? And with social
yeah,
media, it closes that gap. So I may have a person who know me personally who may be like, I know what she knows. I'm not buying from her because it's usually the people that's closest to us.
yeah,
And that's okay
yeah.
because there are millions of people who will
Billions of
find
people.
value in what I'm saying because they're not looking at me as a personal person that they don't want to see come up or they don't
Yeah,
want to see make it or be successful. So I think that was really that was one of the biggest catalysts for me was like, let me just start a totally new page. This page that I don't have everyone I know on it and let me just start fresh.
yeah,
And also I think the game changer for me has been it's called done for you content because I just couldn't find the time to create this content from scratch. And that was my issue.
yeah. I've seen your
Like
post. You're in your car. You're driving your son to school. That's what it looks like.
I am,
That's
right?
what it looks like.
Right. So for that page is pretty much for that page, that's the content. Like I don't really have to prep.
Yeah,
But when I think about my other page and, I want to talk about the tarot and I do the tarot and I may read it, but I have to do some prep and writing first, right? Because it's not as natural to me. I have to, I have to plan
yeah.
where that was my roadblock because I don't have I cannot squeeze blood from a turnip. I
Right.
cannot squeeze any more time. So
Yeah,
it's like there's some topics that are just there. It's like math, so I can get these products that are written and I can take that base and customize it to myself.
yeah,
So that's pretty much what my page is focusing on, like, done for you products. And then my page is really teaching how to use these products. So,
yeah.
how do you use these elements? How do you get your audience engaged? Things like that. So, that's pretty much been that's been my sweet spot
That's
for
good.
sure. It's
That's
been
good.
most natural.
Right on. So we're gonna go ahead and this is toward the end right here. 3 tips. You have 3 tips for any future educators.
Okay, 3 tips. Let's think. Definitely, and I know this has nothing to do with education, but learn how to invest. because when you do not have financial worries, you can be a fantastic teacher to young people. If you're young coming in, just put the money in that extra savings account, pick a stock or just whatever that might be, make sure you invest in some real estate so that that job does not have to be so stressful.
Yeah.
Secondly, um let a young person be a young person and you be an adult, right? Don't feel the need to argue or need to one up a child, a
Yeah.
young person. Even if you're a young teacher, by being a teacher, I don't care if you're 3 or 4 years older than your students. You're an adult and you're a teacher now. You don't have to battle. You don't have to dominate these kids. They need someone who understands them because the world is going to beat them up enough,
That's right.
right? They're with us, the majority. They're with us more than with their parents. So
Right.
they should feel loved.
Mhm.
And three, um, be happy with where you are. You know, we're in a generation with, everybody is doing such seemingly big things. And, it makes it hard for people to feel comfortable or at peace with where they are. But be at peace. I mean, we can't forget as educators who we are. Like without us, there will be no anything else,
Yeah.
right? We are the first responders to society. So just, know that, you are, following in the footsteps of some very powerful people, a very powerful lineage as far as educators, and we're irreplaceable. And just, that's my three.
Right on. Well, Miss Williams, Miss April Williams, thank you so much. Where can people find you on social media? Before we end, where can people find you on social media?
Thank you. I can be found at the Digital Ashe on TikTok and on Instagram, although I am posting mostly on TikTok. And then I can also be found at my website, which is just www.digitalashe. Ashe is ASHE dot
Got it.
com.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.